Hi, I'm Andrew Spieler.
And I'm Mary Hope Rennie.
And you're watching or listening to Behind the Sign, real stories from real estate.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good, Andrew. How are you?
Good.
Good. I'm excited to talk about you today.
Yeah, today should be interesting.
Yeah. I'm excited. So more than anything, I want to know how you got here. From where you were previous to real estate.
Yep.
Your journey here, and then why you are here now. So let's start before real estate. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
How far back you want to go?
How far do you want to go back?
Well, actually, I'll go further back than I would initially expect because I had somebody point out to me last week that I'm coming up on 30 years since I started in film and or television production.
Interesting.
Which I didn't really realize until I sat down to do the math, and it's true. So to go way back in time, second grade, I saw my first play.
Okay.
Fell in love with theater and wanted to act.
Yep.
I did acting camps. I did summer camps. I did everything I could. Stock theater, second through fifth grade.
Okay.
Fifth grade, I said, now I want to act for film. I want to see what that's all about because I was big into movies.
Interesting.
And this was
in fifth grade.
In fifth grade.
Okay.
Yep. And I was in the suburb north of Boston. Not much of an area to find an outlet for acting for kids for film or television. So my mom said, well, there's a mentor program at your elementary school. Why don't you request to do it with the local cable access channel, learn how things work behind the camera so you can act better in front of it. So I said, okay, sure, Mom. I went down there and I spent a day with, his name's Don Cronin. He was the one who ran the TV station at the time. He showed me the switchboard. He showed me the cameras. He showed me how to cut on 3/4 deck tapes, the big chunky plastic tapes. And I was hooked. And he asked me if I would come back that night to operate a camera for a town hall meeting, which is like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
But I was ecstatic. So I was there, dressed to the nines.
Wow. So that was around like 10, right? 10, 11 years old,
yeah,
fifth grade?
I think I was 11 at this point. Yep. So, and then after that, I worked and I crewed with them on all kinds of shows that they did in their studio. They did field shows with Concerts on the Common and sports broadcast coverage and election coverage. And there was a psychic show. There was a motorcycle show. There was all kinds of stuff. So I learned a lot by just being very active at a young age. And then that station lost funding.
Okay.
Because a new Comcast came in or whatever, and they shifted directives. And the town still wanted things covered, but the TV station wasn't allowed to cover them. So I was taking their equipment for free and going out and covering it on their behalf. And I started my own business doing that.
And how old were you then?
So this was, I think, right around 8th grade, I'd say.
Okay. So you weren't driving.
No, I wasn't driving.
So your mom was driving you with the material.
My parents were shuttling me around, helping me load up the gear, pick up the gear. And remember, this is like, early mid-90s, and the equipment was probably from like late 80s, early 90s. So these are like big hulking cameras and like big cables and giant batteries. And it was always just a bear, just physically.
Wow.
And so, but I started doing it and I was getting paid for it. So I started investing the money that I was making from these shoots into my own equipment. Because this was also at the time where we were moving from kind of analog into a more digital age. And I bought my own editing station, and Final Cut Pro had just come out. And I went into Boston and was trained by a documentary group in Boston on how to cut. And so then I started doing highlight reels for high school students applying to colleges. So I was working with like a lot of the parents of my classmates.
Wow.
Because
they were hiring you.
They were hiring me to cut their kids' footage that I had shot of them playing football so they could apply to Harvard.
So you had more of a career by high school than most people have in their life.
I was very busy.
Yeah.
And when the time came to apply for schools for college, I was still torn because I still wanted to get back into acting at some point. And so I applied to some schools for theater, some schools for film. I kind of deep down knew I really wanted to continue on the film track because I didn't want to all of a sudden just stop doing production because now I owned all this equipment and I loved it. And so I ended up going for film. I went to SUNY Purchase, their film conservatory. And it's a 4-year intensive BFA writer-director program. You had to shoot on film, literally cut on film, tape it together. It was
no messing around.
Yeah, no messing around. Really intense. And then after that, I was just going to try and start working on local independent projects in New York. And my dad this time had the wise words. He said, "Why don't you look into some grad programs?" And I said, "Dad, going to film school for, at a graduate level doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get a, work in film. It doesn't work that way." And he said, "I know, but, I really enjoyed my experience." He went to 2 grad schools.
Wow.
As an engineer, and then he went back for business for his MBA up at Dartmouth here in New Hampshire. And so I said, okay. So I looked, and the only program to me that was going to be of any value was the American Film Institute, which is pretty much the top film school in the world.
Yep.
And the reason why is because when you go there, you go under a very specific degree department.
Okay.
So if you want to be a director, you go into directing. If you want to be an editor, it's an editor, producer, etc. So it's a microcosm of the studio system. And I was excited by that because up until that point, I had to write everything I shot. I acted in my own stuff. I was cutting my own stuff. And I wanted to work with a team of people who were passionate in the roles that they do. So I applied, did not think I'd get in, got in, moved out to LA right after graduating from undergrad, did AFI, blew my mind wide open.
Yep.
Just an amazing, amazing program, amazing faculty and teachers and fellow students. And then I started working pretty much right away on independent film productions as what's called a first assistant director.
Okay.
Now, the short term is first AD.
Okay.
Most people are like, what the heck is that? And oftentimes the AD is mistaken for the director on set because I'm the one out there in the middle of the storm calling the shots, often calling action and cut. I've got the bullhorn sometimes if we got big
You're
large
doing
crowds.
the real work.
Yeah, you're
The
there.
director gets to sit back a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I'm there to provide the work environment for the talent to do their best work in front of the camera and for the creatives behind the camera, the director, the DP, to get what they need in order to get the job done.
So kind of a middleman.
Yes. So
in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. I had to be both left brain and right brain oriented because I had to be creative in being able to make the day and coming up with ideas and suggestions for what we were creating. But I also had to be left brain aligned with budget, time, and the producers. And I mean, I was insured and bonded on some shows because of the budget levels and the stakes and all that sort of thing. So, so it was one of those things where I didn't even know what a first AD was until I went out to LA and went to AFI. And then it wasn't the thing that I expected to do full time out there. Okay. But if you're good at it, there are very few out there who do it and who are good at it. And so you can work as much or as little as you want. And so I was...
Good opportunities.
Yes, very thankful to have that opportunity. So, but at a certain point, just before my daughter was born, I said, I need to dial it back because it's very stressful.
Yeah.
And so I moved into branded content, which was more commercial work, that kind of thing for online as a producer and a director. And that was great. But then my wife and I, we grew up in New England. My wife's from Southern Maine, and we always knew we wanted to have a family back east. So we decided, all right, let's take a look and really explore a move back. Yeah. And so we were doing that right at the end of 2019. And the original idea was I would fly back for work, back to LA for jobs here and there, or down in New York, whatever. We'd make it work, and I'd teach locally.
Because that's what you knew. That's
Yep.
That was your business, and that business isn't really here that much.
No, and when we came back here, or just as we were coming back, is when COVID hit. And when COVID hit, the entire entertainment industry shut down for over a year, really.
Wow, yes.
I went back out to LA one other time in 2021, just for my Directors Guild days out there, and making a movie is hard enough as it is, and then you throw in all the COVID protocols and the health issues that would come up, and it makes it almost impossible. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube with a blindfold on. So I kind of said, all right, that's really not going to be the world for me anymore.
So that was a big switch that you didn't realize it was going to be such a monumental switch, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you thought you were physically just moving your family here and staying in the same career.
Yes. I thought I had
And that didn't happen.
No, because COVID blew that up.
COVID blew up a lot of things.
Yep, COVID blew it up. And then a month after we moved into our new place here, we found out we were pregnant with twin boys.
That blows up
so
things,
too. So that also blew things up. So 2020 was a big year of blow up and sort of reassessment. And so I just kind of said, all right, how do I kind of go back to my roots? So kind of thinking back on what I did, in middle school and high school, and even through college. And real estate listing media seemed to be a good option just because at the time it meant I didn't have to interface with a lot of people in person, especially with newborns back at home. And it would allow me to sort of explore the area that we've just moved to in a way and meet people. And so I started doing that. And then I just became more interested in real estate as a result. Decided to take the course, got licensed in 2022 here in New Hampshire. Joined a team, then I got licensed in Mass.
So I also know, because I know a little bit about you, when you decided to get into real estate, you took a lot of time on that as well, deciding on which brokerage to join, to be a single agent, a team agent. You probably more than any other agent I've talked to did all your research.
Yes.
And more.
Yep.
So what were you looking at for a brokerage, and what kind of drew you eventually to where you ended up?
It was really easy, actually. The thing that I was looking for, the biggest metric, was a sense of community and culture. And the reason for that is because I understand the value of it from having been on sets, where if the tone and the culture is not protected daily on set, things devolve really quickly, and the shoot ends up becoming nothing but a struggle and a nightmare, and makes my job really, really hard. Yeah. So while I was on set, I had to be one part, boss whipcracker. The other part, which was the majority, which was the cheerleader, and the one who was sort of acknowledging the work that was going into the day and appreciative of people's time and energy. And so when I started looking at brokerages and realizing I had to hang my license somewhere, which was kind of a new concept to me.
A lot of this is, steps.
I went to 12 different brokerages.
Like I said, you did a little more work than most.
I did, and it's because I honestly, before I make a decision, I measure twice and I cut once. I don't like to, move all around, and I'm a very consistent, persistent personality type, and I went to a lot of them, and they were all very nice and very welcoming, and there wasn't really any place that I stepped into where I was like, ooh, bad vibes or anything.
Absolutely.
But I would say that when I came into this office, it was so apparent at how different this space was because of the importance that was put on the education and the sort of, communal approach to sharing of ideas between the agents in-house. And you could tell that the staff really did care in wanting to support them. Flawed as it might be, which is flawed everywhere, it's all about the intention, the hope, and the striving for betterment. And you could just feel that oozing out of the walls here. Which is kind of a magical thing, Yep. So for me, I was like, okay. And on top of it, I was coming into it saying, I'm a new agent. I don't know anything. How do I learn things, right?
Yep.
And to go back to that mentor program, I learned production because I was taken under the wing of others daily on set to learn things.
Right.
So for me, I was looking for that as well. So I joined the team. And so, being on a team and just being around and hearing and talking and having that support, especially starting out, was really important for me. Yeah.
So you started off in real estate thinking that's what you're going to do.
Right.
I'm going to be a realtor now.
That was it. It was the total focus.
Put away the other. I'm going to be a realtor.
Yep. Yeah, put away my camera, and I bought a phone.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's your new equipment.
Yeah. Yep.
An iPhone at that.
Yeah.
And you did get at one listing.
Yeah, my brother's house. Yeah.
Okay, no, but I think this is important.
Sure, yeah.
What did you learn while doing that? Because I know you did it also a little differently than most agents. They get excited, they put it on.
Yep.
You were coming from the photography, director, media platform.
Yes.
And so I think you kind of started it from a different perspective. I'd like to know your experience of listing that property.
So I think part of the intrigue for real estate for me, and it's still there, and someday I'd love to get back to it, is making an experience out of the listing, out of the sale, right? Because at the end of the day, and this goes back to the entertainment industry being a very social industry, people don't make decisions based on facts. They make decisions based on feelings.
Absolutely.
And so if you want to actually have success in getting people excited about a property, you got to stir up a level of emotion. And so for me, I'm looking at the house and I'm going, okay, unfortunately, this was one that had been listed. It was retracted. It didn't sell while it was sitting. So I'm going, okay, well, this is my
now
first
I have to
listing.
even be more creative.
Right. I've already got a history here, and it's only been off for a couple months, and now we're putting it back on. And for me, it was all about, well, let's get everybody in the area involved in it as best as I can. And so a lot of my outreach focused on other agents in the area. We did like a big brokers open that was sort of, I think at like, I don't know, Thursday or Wednesday at 5:00. I did ads on Waves that people who were commuting out of Boston could see that there was a home for sale just off of 93 as they were coming out of the city.
So those little things on Waze,
Yep.
you did that.
Yeah. Yep. So I was trying to take a very
Yeah.
strategic approach, and what worked so well that I didn't necessarily even intend for was that when people came to the brokers open or the open house, because they were having such a good time, right? Because they were just feeling like it was a fun environment, food and some drinks and music, they were posting about it on their socials. And some of the agents that came in are very social active. So they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for me because now they're proliferating the fact that this listing exists.
Okay, can you give me some numbers on that? Because I think there's some big numbers of your social media.
I mean, I don't even remember, to be honest. But
it was something crazy, right? Like the posts and the likes and you put it on, like people put it on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the total views overall was like, I don't know, it was very high. It was almost 2 years ago now, and I can't even remember what it was. But higher than I was expecting it to be, because I was using a combination of paid ads that were targeted, some boosted posting, and then the strategies of the folks coming in the door, tagging and promoting. And it's just one of those things that just goes to show like the power that can be harnessed through story, first and foremost, right? And then through excitement and emotion, and then social media, right?
Yep.
Because they're intertwined.
Absolutely.
Right?
Which I think not one thing, not. Am I guessing that sold?
It sold. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it sold for above ask.
There you go.
Great.
Okay. After it was sitting on the market.
Yes, and it sold within a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why didn't you just keep going? Why? What changed, or when did that change?
Well, just before my listing, two things were happening at the same time.
Yep.
One, this listing and getting licensed in Mass and getting that organized. And then the other was I had literally come into the space we're in now, which used to be just an office space, to take a phone call because I saw other agents coming in here, and it's a quiet, windowless space. So I was coming here taking phone calls, but it's the only room layout in the building where there's one room, a hallway that leads into another room, so they're connected. And I was like, well, this is kind of like some small studios I've been in, some sound stages out in LA. And so I had this idea of converting this space into a dedicated studio space. And the reason for it was I had kind of been at like an overload point, because I think when you become an agent, there is so much coming at you so fast. And you're like, what do we prioritize first? Is this really necessary? Do I need to do this? Am I behind? And you feel like you're failing before you even get going.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of going to say, okay, I'm going to just push all this back. I'm going to retreat into my basement. I'm going to build a studio for myself. I'm going to start doing my own content, and then just focus on, getting really good at marketing for listings and whatnot. But then I saw this space and I said, well, I could do that, or I could set this up so that everybody could have access to it. And we could take a high tide raises all ships approach to the brokerage as a whole, because that was the very reason I joined the brokerage in the first place, was that everybody was here to sort of share their knowledge and what they did and what they knew. And I don't know real estate real well, but I know all of this. I do know this. So to me, it was like, okay, here's a big contribution I could make. And as long as I can do this and still put food on the table, then it's a win-win. It could be a win-win-win for everybody.
Absolutely.
Right? Which is one of our big mottos here. And so in talking with Mark, who was a team leader at that time, he was like, tell me more. Because he knew we needed something, but he didn't understand what or how.
Well, the market has shifted into a different marketing platform, and all agents know in some way, even if they're not doing it, they need marketing.
Right.
Of themselves.
Yes.
Not just their listings, but themselves.
Of course. And if you don't have a background in marketing or in video production or in any of this stuff, it's like trying to learn Chinese.
Yes.
While you're trying to
do your
use it.
whole
Yeah,
other
and
job.
do everything else you're supposed
Yeah.
to do. Yeah. So it's not an easy thing. It's not something that you can kind of just pick up and learn overnight, no matter what social media video you saw that says, "Oh, it's easy. Push of a button. Just do
Right.
this." Right? There's so much more to it, and it takes time. It's a
Yep.
creative process. So, so that was the genesis of the studio here, and then that was really it. As I stepped away from the team, and I really shifted gears into designing this space once we got the green light from Mark and leadership here, and all of 2023 was really just the installation and the build, and I called in some favors from friends out in LA to come out.
Pretty
and
impressive.
help me set things up.
If you haven't been into this room, I know you're only seeing a little bit of this, but this isn't something small that you built.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean,
This is not just one wall. This is a whole room
Right,
and a second room.
exactly. The idea is to be a small multi-purpose micro studio,
Yep.
for media content.
What is the objective that you think that every agent should at least be focused on because it's their own business? What is that you would like to see every agent at least tap into in some way?
I think the simplest answer to that would be I'd like the agents to all embrace their own story.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, so what I mean by this is, and this is another thing I noticed coming in as a new agent, you come in as a new agent and you go, okay, this agent's doing this, I have to do this. And it's a bit of monkey see, monkey do, because you don't really know otherwise, right?
Right.
And there's nobody to kind of guide you through and kind of be like, no, it's okay, you can do this way, or you can do it that way, right? There's no right or wrong way to eat a Reese's, is a term I like to use a lot in the creative process.
That's a very interesting.
Right? Yeah.
I feel like there is, but go ahead.
Sure, right? But part of the work that I've been doing with the agents who have been members of the studio is to get them to realize that, like, if they had a past prior to coming into real estate, they should not just completely cut that off and say, I never did that, I'm just an agent, hire me.
Yes.
Because you're negating the very thing that makes you unique and makes you you. And at the end of the day, as an agent, my belief is that you're not selling property. You're selling who you are as an entity to work with others.
Okay, can you say that again? Because I think
Yes.
that's important.
So you're not here to sell real estate. You're here to sell yourself as an entity or a conduit for interacting and helping other people. Again, it's a people business. It's a social business. And if you don't take the time to sort of say, this is me, this is who I am, and be, confident in that, then you're going to attract kind of anybody and everybody. And that's going to make your job harder, because now you're going to start working with people who may not be the most ideal client for you, right? I think a lot of agents can also come in and they say, I need work, I need business. I'll take anything.
Take anything. Yep.
Right? And out in LA, we had a saying, and the saying was, your career is defined by the projects you say no to, right? And I think the same thing holds true here, because if you say yes to anybody, you'll find yourself working with people who are going to make the job harder for you, may not pay you as much, may make you really not like the job as much. And so where's the long-term benefit of that, So it's finding out who you are, who you work well with, and who you could work with 24/7 for the rest of your life. And then how do you attract those people like a magnet to you? And this is one avenue of that process. So, yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see. You've had about a year in this studio.
Yep.
What are you seeing? I'm excited to see even long term. What are you seeing of the agents that are taking advantage of this studio? And what are you seeing kind of coming out of it, and different personalities and things like that?
It's what makes it fun for me is no two people are the same.
Absolutely.
There are some who this is very easy for them. It actually comes very natural to them. And there are others who they're struggling, and it's tough and it's uncomfortable to a degree, but they're forcing themselves to get in front of camera, or they're forcing themselves to ask questions about, who they are and what makes them who they are. And so seeing the growth process over the last, it's really been 6 months of intensive work with clients here, and seeing where they started and where they're going is great, because you actually get to see them starting to really believe in themselves. Whereas I think a lot of people, when they start in here, they're doing fine maybe, but they don't have this strong sense of self or core or confidence.
Yep.
And the goal is, confidence begets confidence attracts
Yes.
others. And so I'm seeing that growth happening in a lot of people. And to me, that's exciting. We can keep that up.
Yes.
Sky's the limit, you know?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I learned so much about you. I'm excited
Yeah,
also to
sure.
see what the studio brings. This is one of the fruits of it, us doing
Yep.
this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. It's like I said, it's the first time I've ever done podcasts. So.
Yeah. And I think hopefully we'll get people to reach out and ask us questions
Absolutely.
and give us
Well,
guidance on what they'd like to hear. You
And
know?
that's where I think this is going to evolve as well.
Yeah.
I want to kind of give a basis, and then where people are interested, I want to be able to provide that. So I'm excited to get that interaction with people and
Yeah.
go from there.
Yeah.
So
Great.
good.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mary Hope.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Behind the Sign, Real Stories from Real Estate.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and gained a little insight into the world behind those for sale signs.
Today's episode was brought to you by Keller Williams Realty Metropolitan, proudly serving New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts. A special thank you to our agents, leadership, and partners at KW Metro for their continued support.
And thanks to you, our amazing listeners and viewers. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Leave us a review or comment. We love hearing your feedback, and it helps more people discover the show.
And if you have a real estate story you'd like to share or a question you want answered on a future episode, reach out to us at metro.kw.com or find us on Instagram, handle at KWMetroNH.
Until next time, we'll see you
Behind the sign.